What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and welcome back. In today's video we're taking a quick look at one of the latest phones from Xiaomi. The one that we have here today is called the Xiaomi 13 Lite. Now I've also included a full camera comparison between this device and my iPhone 14 Pro. And if you're here and you just want to see that camera comparison, that one starts at this minute of this video. So you can skip right to that if that's the only thing you want to see. And of course I know this is not exactly a fair camera comparison, but don't misunderstand the purpose of it. Through this comparison I just wanted to show you what a budget-friendly device like the Xiaomi 13 Lite can do when compared to a flagship. Alright, so about this device, this is the first phone that I got to try that's using the Snapdragon 7 Gen 1 that's paired with 8 gigs of RAM. And on the Antutu benchmark get a score of about 560,000. So of course not the highest score out there, but let's keep in mind the price of this device because this is half of the price of a flagship. Now, even though that score is not insanely high, you can still expect really good performance for pretty much anything that you're gonna be doing with this device. So this also runs MIUI 14 that's based on Android 12. Now, interestingly enough, the Xiaomi 13 runs MIUI 14 that's based on Android 13. So I found that interesting. So this is based on Android 12. So for gaming, for social media, for browsing the web or anything like that, the phone does perform really well. And I've also noticed that it doesn't get that hot when playing games. This is a problem with a lot of phones because they do get a bit too hot when playing games. But this doesn't seem to be an issue for this particular device. Inside it, we also have a 4500 mAh battery and the device supports 67 watt fast charging. And we actually get a charger that comes in the box, which is something that we don't typically find with a lot of phones these days. So charging this device from 0 to 100 with the charger that comes in the box is done in about 50 minutes. So from 0 to 100 and on one charge you should be able to get about 7 hours of screen on time. On the front of the device we have a 6.55 inches AMOLED screen that has a 1080p resolution and a refresh rate of 120 Hz. The peak brightness for this screen is 1000 nits. So yes, you're going to be able to see this phone outside in direct sunlight. With a lot of budget-friendly devices you can't exactly see the screens, but that shouldn't be an issue with this particular device. We also have curved edges on the left and on the right hand side of the screen. Now, some of you love these curved edges, some of you don't, but if you want something that doesn't have curved edges, there is always the Xiaomi 13 that has a flat screen, but of course this one is much more expensive. So for the Xiaomi 13 Lite we do get a curved screen. Now at the top here we have a 32 megapixel camera and another camera that's used for portrait mode pictures, but I kind of find that cutout a bit interesting because it does look a lot like the one that we get on the iPhone 14 Pro, even though it doesn't actually have any of the functionality that we get from the one on the iPhone 14 Pro. There is also an in-screen fingerprint scanner that does work pretty well. So all you have to do is touch the screen at the bottom here and of course the phone will unlock. And I would say that the fingerprint scanner works just as good as it does on any flagship out there. Now, one thing I've noticed is the fact that we don't have dual speakers. So we only have one speaker at the bottom here. And the speaker doesn't sound bad by any means, but it is still one speaker. I do prefer phones that have one at the top, one at the bottom, but with this device you're only gonna get the one at the bottom. So here we have the USB-C charging port and the slot for the SIM card. So this device can take 2 SIM cards, but it cannot take an SD card, something to keep in mind. The phone's frame is also made out of metal, so yes, it does give the phone that premium feel and look, I'm gonna say. On the right hand side here we have the power button and the volume keys, nothing on the left hand side, and at the top here we have a secondary hole probably for another microphone and the hole for the IR blaster. So yes, you could use this phone as a remote control for your TV, just to give you an example. This phone also has an NFC chip inside it, so yes, you can make payments using Google Pay. It supports 5G connectivity, so if your carrier offers 5G, you could connect to the 5G networks. Personally, my carrier doesn't offer 5G connectivity yet, so I haven't tried that out. We have Wi-Fi 6, so faster downloading speeds if you do have Wi-Fi 6 at home. And I've also tried the GPS unit inside it, and it takes about a second to find your location. Once connected, it will not lose your location. And just in case you're wondering, yes, you're gonna be able to watch Netflix on HD on this device. So overall, a pretty cool looking device, but I feel that not a lot has changed since the Xiaomi 12 Lite. I was kind of hoping we would get a few more changes compared to the last year's device, but realistically kind of the same performance, and a lot of things are similar with last year's device. Alright, and that brings us to our camera comparison. So on the back here, the main camera is a 50 megapixel sensor, then we have a 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and then we have a 2 megapixel macro camera. I wish they wouldn't even include those 2 megapixel sensors anymore, but it's here just in case. And on the front here we have a 32 megapixel sensor. And with that being said, let's start by checking out some sample video recordings that I've done with my iPhone 14 Pro and of course with the Xiaomi 13 Lite. Alright, and we are starting our camera comparison with the recording that I've done with the front-facing cameras on the Xiaomi 13 Lite and of course the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, if you're recording the front-facing camera on the Xiaomi 13 Lite, the maximum recording resolution is 1080p at 60 frames per second. Of course, with the iPhone 14 Pro, we can do 4K at 60 frames per second with that front-facing camera. It's also a pretty windy day, so you're probably gonna hear some wind aside from my voice. We're gonna walk this way. I'm gonna walk a bit faster, just so you can see how that video stabilization works. And we'll pan this way for a bit. And a bit this way. So yeah, front-facing cameras on the Xiaomi 13 Lite and of course the iPhone 14 Pro. Alright, and we are moving on to a quick recording that we are doing with the main cameras on the back of the Xiaomi 13 Lite and of course the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, if you're recording with the main camera, you can do 4K at 30 frames per second with the Xiaomi 13 Lite. Of course, with the iPhone 14 Pro, you can also record in 4K at 30 frames per second. Just as I mentioned earlier, it is a bit windy, so you may hear some wind aside from my voice. I'm gonna stop here, we're gonna pan right. The waves are pretty crazy today. And we'll walk this way, so towards Laura basically. And I'm also trying to walk a bit faster just so you can see how the video stabilization works on both devices. So yeah, main cameras 4K at 30 frames per second. Okay, and we're moving on to our last recording for daytime. So for this recording, I've switched the cameras to the ultra-wide cameras. Now, if you're recording with the ultra-wide camera on the back of the Xiaomi 13 Lite, the maximum recording resolution is 1080p at 30 frames per second. So you cannot even do 1080p at 60 frames per second, something to keep in mind. Of course, with the iPhone 14 Pro, we can also do 4K at 60 frames per second with that ultra-wide camera. So we're gonna walk this way for a bit, just so you can see how that video stabilization works. And we're gonna stop here and pan left slowly. So yeah, ultra-wide cameras on the back of the iPhone 14 Pro and of course the Xiaomi 13 Lite. Alright, we have a quick video recording in low light between the Xiaomi 13 Lite and of course the iPhone 14 Pro. For this recording we are using the main cameras on the back of the two devices and recording in 4K at 30 frames per second. So I'm just gonna walk up to here. We'll stop here and we'll pan right slowly. Just so you can see how both devices do under these conditions. And back left. So yeah, this is how recording at night basically would look if you're using the Xiaomi 13 Lite and the iPhone 14 Pro. So for video recordings, if you're recording using that main camera on the back of the device and recording in 4K at 30 frames per second, yes, the footage does look decent. But of course, if we are comparing it with the iPhone 14 Pro, the iPhone 14 Pro does much better. Once again, I was disappointed to see that it doesn't have 4K recordings for the front-facing cameras. So you can only do 1080p with the front-facing camera. So I was really hoping that this year we would see 4K, but no. It's actually the same with the Xiaomi 13. So no 4K on the front. And next, we're gonna move on and start by checking out some pictures that I took with the main cameras during the day. Alright, so for the main camera and pictures taken during the day, I can't really say anything bad about the Xiaomi 13 Lite. It actually does better than the iPhone 14 Pro in many of those pictures. In many of those pictures, the Xiaomi actually retains the original colors, so the colors that I was seeing with my own eyes better than the iPhone 14 Pro. So if you're looking for a phone that's fairly affordable and can take decent looking pictures during the day, well, the Xiaomi 13 Lite will definitely not disappoint. So for the main camera and daytime pictures, I can't really say anything bad about it, mostly considering that this phone is about 4 times cheaper than the iPhone 14 Pro. But what do you guys think about those daytime pictures? Definitely leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Moving on to some zoom pictures, and here I've done 5 times zoom, but keep in mind that the iPhone 14 Pro actually has a telephoto lens on the back, so showing you 5 times zoom pictures from the iPhone 14 Pro isn't exactly fair, but I wanted to see how the zoom pictures from this device would look like. So of course the pictures from the iPhone are gonna be sharper, but I don't think the phone does that bad. The Xiaomi 13 Lite does that bad for those 5 times zoom pictures. Maybe 5 times is a bit too much because you're starting to lose quality, but if you're gonna do 2 times zoom or maybe 3 times zoom, the quality is still there. So not too bad for zoom pictures considering that we don't have a telephoto lens. Moving on to portrait mode pictures, now the edge detection around the subject almost seems to be slightly better in the pictures taken by the iPhone 14 Pro, but not that big of a difference. And overall, for the price of the device, I can't really say anything bad about it. Of course, it kind of blows the highlights in some of those pictures, but we do have to take into consideration the price. So overall, for portrait mode pictures, we'll still do pretty decent. As for the pictures taken with the ultra-wide cameras, even though the field of view is not as wide as the one that we get on the iPhone 14 Pro, I actually find most pictures taken by the Xiaomi 13 Lite to be better than the pictures that I took with the iPhone 14 Pro. First of all, dynamic range seems to be slightly better in the pictures taken by this device, and also the colors are closer to reality, I'm gonna say. So not bad for that ultra-wide camera. Next, we're gonna move on and check out some pictures that I took at night with the main camera and of course the ultra-wide camera, and all the pictures that you are seeing on your screen right now were taken using the night modes available on both devices. Now, looking at those pictures, of course, in those situations where you don't really have any street lights or you don't really have any lights at all, the Xiaomi 13 Lite doesn't do that great. The pictures are quite dark and, well, there is a lot of noise in them. But in those situations where you do have some street lights, it does do fairly good for a budget-friendly device. Of course, the pictures aren't as sharp as the pictures that you are taking with the iPhone 14 Pro, but we do have to take into consideration that price. I do like the fact that the Xiaomi 13 Lite does retain the colors, well, the real colors in those pictures more than the iPhone 14 Pro, because the iPhone 14 Pro does make some of those pictures look a bit too yellow. So yeah, these were some sample pictures that I took with the main camera on the back of the 13 Lite and of course the night mode. And the same kind of goes for the ultra-wide camera and the night mode. So of course the pictures aren't gonna be as sharp as the pictures that we take with the iPhone 14 Pro, but I feel that they are pretty decent for this kind of a device. So a budget-friendly device, not to mention that once again the colors in the pictures taken by the Xiaomi 13 Lite do look a bit more realistic, so closer to what I was seeing with my own eyes. So definitely leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts about the nighttime pictures that I took with the Xiaomi 13 Lite. Moving on to selfies and starting with some daytime selfies, well, here of course the iPhone 14 Pro does better, and even though we have a 32 megapixel sensor on the front, I don't know, there is no detail in those pictures. If you look at my face, there is this smoothing effect over my face, even though I do have that totally turned off on the Xiaomi 13 Lite. As for the nighttime selfies, well, they are not as sharp as the ones that I took with the iPhone 14 Pro. But you do get an idea of what the Xiaomi 13 Lite can do with the front and of course the rear cameras. So what do you guys think about this device? Is it worth its price? Should it have been better? What do you think about it overall? Definitely leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next one.